to see you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, good. Yeah.
Oh, Faye, good to. Well, she doesn't shake. She doesn't know how because she didn't go to school, so it's fine.
We've been waiting here for about 2 hours because apparently you were occupied in Linwood, of all places.
I was not getting laid in Linwood. I went to Linwood to smoke weed and hang out with a friend. I don't smoke weed.
Oh,
it was
with a
time.
friend. Okay.
A friend that I never get to see. And then from Linwood, I went to somewhere else that is 18 to 20 miles away from here.
What's the name of it?
I don't know. I followed my GPS.
Let's not.
That's a familiar story.
Yeah.
Let's not get bogged in the details. I'm curious, was it worth the trip? That's
oh
a
my
long
God.
way.
Yes. So yes. Yes, very yes. You actually know this person.
Shut up.
Also, you've worked with him before, apparently.
I'm worried.
You're concerned?
Is the person small?
Small.
Small, like your size?
He is larger than me, at least in height.
Film industry?
Somewhat. Yes.
Somewhat.
Somewhat. Yes.
What a fun game.
Oh.
Okay.
I have
good for you.
Good feelings about it.
Nice. Yeah.
That's great.
This does not need to be on the variety show.
Well, living history.
It's a small world,
Small
a
fucking
small
world.
city of what? 10 million, 2 million people? How many people? It's a
2 to 10 million.
2 to 10 million. Interesting.
Yep.
Okay. I stand corrected by a wiki article, which is not unusual as a ex-college student.
Also, if we don't want to
Hey,
be a Google,
I
congratulations.
graduated. It
Yeah.
happened. It was a real
Ooh.
thing. Yay, it happened.
Coincidentally, this person who's staying here right now also just graduated, and they just texted me. I'm going to see if they're coming back. They just went on 2 Tinder dates back to back.
Whoa.
Damn.
They are really on the hustle.
They are.
That's-
Okay. So they came here on Sunday night, and
Uh-huh.
on Monday morning they woke up. Guess how many Bumble requests they got?
7.
317.
Oh,
What are they doing that's so hot?
I don't know.
you know,
You tell me. They're gonna come by in like 15 minutes and
Okay, we
Let
can
me
assess
know.
their hotness. This is like
Yeah.
the opposite of the red flags episode. This is like the white flags, the like green flags, like woo,
Yeah.
over here. Okay.
the checkered flag.
The checker flag. Yes, that's exactly what I was looking for.
So your preferred pronoun is
You asked me. I prefer they pronouns.
okay.
But I don't necessarily mind being called other things. And this kind of falls into the like area of identity. I believe that I can say I am non-binary, and that can be true. And at the same time, someone else looking at me and saying that she's a woman, or that's a man. If you do this, you're definitely a man, or definitely not a woman. And those things can exist simultaneously. And I think that's because of the complexity of the categories of feminine and masculine, or male and female. Gender theory stuff. But yes, thanks for asking. I really like they.
Cool.
What are your preferred pronouns?
He, him.
He, him.
Yeah.
I think we've talked about this, and I know that yours are he.
But the other thing about that, too, speaking of like calling other people things, I guess to say, I have found that I just do the blanket term of they, them to everyone. And there's been kind of more recently, a few people have stopped me in conversation and be like, are they a they now? Or are you talking about a group of people? And I'm just like,
But it's a good question, right?
It is a good question.
Because if you're signaling by using pronouns for someone, the other person is probably reasonably assuming you're using the correct pronouns for them and asking like, oh, is this a thing that that person wants that I should do now?
Yeah.
Maybe they're not being as
yeah.
polite about it, but like,
I think it's definitely that they're not being polite about it or
Yeah.
being respectful about it. Or at least that's the vibe I get from it.
oh yeah, for sure.
I would much rather... I actually don't know where I'm going with this.
I think I know where you're going with it. It's like we're at that point where it makes the most sense to make that the new baseline. it's been agreed upon that that's like the safest and best place to be.
Absolutely.
Also, I don't really feel sorry for people who have trouble with it, because the most that people are actually asking for is a little bit, paying a little more attention to the context of a conversation. And that's really all that you need to do in order to understand whether you're talking about a group of people or one person.
Exactly.
So
just pay attention to context.
I don't really see the issue personally.
Yeah. The other thing that I do is just say their name.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
But it sounds funny.
I
You
know.
have to admit that sounds funny, right?
But in the same token, for the person I'm talking to, it could be very much like saying they, them confuses them. But if I say their name, then they'll instantly know who I'm talking about. Unless they've gone through name change. My friend Baby is that kind of person where they used to have a name that they don't go by anymore. It's a dead name, and now they're this. And there's people that... Actually, there's a person that they were hanging out with recently that kind of were misgendering them, and when they found out that they were misgendering this person, they did an eye roll. And it was just like this whole... That's an example of how...
The rudeness.
The rudeness, and I can't get down with that. Baby was talking with them. This person kept on saying her and she and Colin's wife, like basically going through all of the misgendering abilities.
Trying to play misgendering bingo. Sounds
exactly.
Like sort of like a side note, but I was having a conversation with this guy named Robert, who is an older guy, an older white dude, and we were talking about non-gendered bathrooms with someone who we were next to at a cafe, who doesn't know this person. They just see old white dude, right? And he was bringing up concerns about how to roll it out. And one of the concerns was like, oh, well, it would be nice to know when I'm going into a genderless bathroom what is available, because sometimes I want to use a urinal because that's just what I want to use, because that's an option that my body can take advantage of, et cetera, et cetera. And this person was like, well, I don't feel sorry for you. And I was like, I don't, of course, here I am, Well, I don't think that he's actually looking for sympathy here. I think he's saying that there's a way that maybe we could put, in this case, genderless bathroom.
Yeah,
and then
stalls and urinals,
exactly,
for example, which is a practice
it's rolling out pretty well now.
Yeah.
So it's just frustrating because it's like, okay, older people, no matter what your like gender or how you present, if you're older, I feel like you're not respected here.
Sounds like you're talking about ageism. It sounds like you're saying ageism is real, and I would agree. I think that people are biased against speaking to older people or trying to convince them. There's like that idea that if you're already past a certain age that you can't learn, that you're stubborn, that you're set in your ways. Constantly this us versus them dynamic. And so when it comes to like the problems that are identified in society, it gets easy to say, oh, it's the dumb Southerners' fault, or it's the old people's fault. To just like pick a group to blame it on.
And then eschew responsibility
for
to
every
that
individual
group.
Who happens to be a member of that group. And I think that there's some logic in that. I think that makes some sense to look at groups and make generalizations based on observable data. But I think it's a bit hypocritical when you allow your biases to manifest towards strangers you've never met or talked to.
This reminds me of going back to the global warming thing I was reading today. Shitty hot takes about how countries whose populations are large, China, India, the critics of basically people in non-industrialized nations having children, and being like, oh, well, it would be better if they just didn't have kids, which, by the way, is totally ignorant of the fact that by raising living standards, you actually decrease the birth rate. So.
I almost feel like we talked about something close to this last time.
Yeah, we did.
Did we?
And there's this dude, Thomas Malthus, who was alive in, I don't fucking know, the 1700s or something like that. There are X amount of people and X amount of resources or what have you, and therefore, he basically said resources are finite and people are the problem. Population is the problem. And so in order for everyone to survive and live well, you have to control the population, which isn't not entirely.
It's not entirely false.
It's not entirely false, but it also it rolled into the mainstream as the only solution, ignoring any idea of bolstering or redistributing resources. And so what you're talking about in the modern day tends to be referred to as neo-Malthusianism. They look at a population that's very dense or an area where there's a lot of people, and they're like, the people are the problem, we need fewer people. And that's the end of their reasoning.
It sort of reminds me of people who say that the only way to have a better government is to have less debt in the government, which again is partially true, but
it's that the only way piece that I think that I quibble with. The only way.
Also, we can pay off our debts with US dollars, so it's like, why aren't we... It's like, so long as we can pay our debts in money that we can print, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't be printing money to spend on infrastructure so long as we don't get runaway inflation. But I'm not an economist, so maybe we don't need to talk about this.
Maybe we're bullshitting.